Right, you're live.
All right, great. Well, welcome to the February 8th meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. We are still virtual, so if you're viewing us online, the people you see on your screen are a combination of staff and commissioners, and I will call the meeting to order, quorum being present. This meeting of the Annapolis Historic Preservation Commission shall come to order. The commission operates pursuant to the land use article of the annotated code of the state of Maryland. Local authority for the commission is derived from municipal code of the city of Annapolis, chapter 21, section 56. The purpose of the HPZ is to preserve sites, structures, and districts of historical, cultural, archaeological, or architectural significance. Requirements for serving on the commission are detailed in chapter 21, section 8.06. The HPC operates pursuant to the State of Maryland Open Meetings Act, and therefore no pending application shall be discussed among or between commissioners outside the public hearing to determine the disposition of any application. Okay. Next on the agenda is our roll call. We have with us this evening Kim Finch, please say here.
I'm here.
Bobby Collins, who serves as vice chair.
Here.
Kevin Smith.
Here.
Leslie Xavier.
Here.
Will Scott.
Here.
Bill Williams may join in a minute. He emailed me, he might be a little late. So we do have a quorum. Next, I have a proposed change to the agenda, a short change. Did people have an opportunity to review the minutes from the January 22nd meeting that Kimberly sent out via email? We could add those. The reason I asked, if you did review them, we could add those to the agenda for approval tonight.
I see those.
If you didn't see them, that's okay. We can just push them off. If you didn't see them, that's fine. They can go in the folder.
I didn't see him.
Okay,
so.
then let's just wait. We'll put that on the next meeting. It was just one pre-app at that point. So, okay. So no proposed changes to the agenda. Next on the agenda is announcements. John or any commissioners? Oh, I've forgotten the rest of the roll call. Sorry. John Tower, who serves as staff. Jackie Rouse is here, also staff from the Office of Planning and Zoning. I do not see our Office of Law here this evening, but if they tune in, I will announce them. All right, sorry about that, guys. And also Kimberly Consoli, who serves as our recorder. So now the next item on the agenda is announcements. John, anything?
I continue to work on many projects outside of the historic district, and even though it doesn't get discussed very often, I just want to point out that the city is in possession of hundreds of boxes of archaeological artifacts, and that's something that this office also organizes, and we're in the process of trying to reduce our number and send many of those artifacts to the Maryland Archaeological Lab, which is in St. Mary's. Just a little footnote for all. Sorry, what?
It's in Calvert County. It's in
Calvert
Frederick. Yeah.
So other things just to announce, even though there's virtually no property on the market, property is changing hands, and a lot of it is going to investors within the historic district. So I suspect we're going to see quite a few applications coming from those groups in the near future.
Okay. Just another announcement to follow up on that. John and I do meet on a routine basis with Karen Brown and Robert Clark from Historic Annapolis to share ideas and issues that might be arising that we want to be on. And basically, they serve as an advocacy group for the historic district, and this topic has come up in those meetings. So All right. Other
Can I
commissioners?
just mention one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
Before it sells to the new owner, anyone who can get in the Poe house, it's really something.
I was in on Sunday. My realtor is actually the guy that's
Yeah.
representing the property, and I got in to see it. It's amazing.
Yeah,
It really is.
it's one of the
mean,
oldest,
yeah.
one of the 4 or 5 oldest houses in the city. So
Yeah, I think I spent half an hour just in the basement, and I don't think people understood why, but I was rooting around and seeing where all the walls had been put in, looking at the old foundations and
Yeah.
everything. It was truly amazing.
Yeah,
It's good. I look forward-
you would find that fascinating and compare it to your house. Go ahead.
I was
Sorry.
fortunate enough to have visited Harvey and Josephine a few times, and I heartily suggest or support what John said, because without rooting around in the basement even, there's so much old hardware and woodwork and floors, and it's just really fascinating to see. And
Yeah.
if I may have one more minute, John circulated to all of us, I think, and I sent to Tim because I saw it earlier in the day, New York Times article about a Marcel Royer house that was summarily destroyed on Long Island in recent days, despite the fact that the new owners had said that they had no intention of demolishing it. They just sent a crew out, one of those one-day things, flattened an important early modernist residential structure.
Yeah.
So we have to be vigilant.
Yes, you're right. I told John, well, I won't go there. All right, next on the agenda is approval of minutes from January 11th. I had one change. Kimberly has already taken care of it. I believe the date for the staff report was not listed on there, and so we've added that. And also, she alerted me to the fact, if you look now, the way our exhibits are listed, she'll be dividing them into applicant, city, and staff with numbering. So she's helping me understand the numbering. So that's one minor change. Did anyone else have any changes to the minutes from January 11th? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve?
I move we approve the minutes for January 11th, 2022.
Okay.
Second.
Second motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Okay, they're approved. Next on the agenda is new violations and status of active violations. John?
I don't have any new violations that are worth mentioning. I did hear from one how should I put it, property owner of a house with a violation that he had not done anything but changed a couple of boards. And I went to the file because it's not difficult to do, and I produced a picture that was only a year old, and I said, now can you point to the two that were replaced here? Anyway, they were all replaced. So I wish I had what is the meter that tests truth? At any rate, we work through these things.
Yes. And so that it will be administratively approved because it was a replacement in kind. Is that correct?
Roughly replacement in kind. Tim, you put eyes on it yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's why I say roughly.
Yeah.
Is that a category?
It's a judgment call, and we leave it to.
I'm reviewing the application.
Okay.
Unresolved.
Okay. Any other commissioners have anything to report or would like to report on violations?
No.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the consent docket, and we have nothing on the consent docket tonight because it would require application. We have one new application, and it would require application without any negative public testimony. And we do need to read some disagreement into the public into the testimony. So we'll be discussing 248. Prince George Street. And Cheryl Wood has just joined us from the Office of Law. Hello, Cheryl.
Hello, hello.
Okay. So we can promote the representatives from, okay, there's Peter Tokar and Jay Schwartz. And Ross Young. All right. Hello. Here we go. All right, great. Thank you, everybody. We'll be discussing your application tonight, but in advance, since we are hearing this, the commission is authorized to require an oath to testify, and we do this en masse, meaning in one large group. If you intend to testify tonight, please rise. Please raise your right hand and do you affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony given this evening and the statements you shall make are true to the best of your information, knowledge, and belief? If that is true, please respond by saying, I do.
I do.
Thank you very much. Okay. So for the applicant that has not been here before, what we will be doing is you can give us a brief statement about your application. Then commissioners can ask you clarifying questions, if any. Then we'll ask the staff to provide their comments. Then we will talk about public testimony, which we received 2 items of public testimony, which I'll read into the record. Then we will have questions and answers, any clarifying further about that testimony. And then we will close that, and then we will deliberate and give you a decision tonight. Okay. So please, one other thing, formally, who made a site visit for this application? I personally, I did. Bobby Collins, Kevin Smith. Kim, did you visit the site?
No, I'm afraid I didn't.
Okay, and Will Scott is off screen right now, but we'll get that in the record as well. Okay. So please introduce yourselves and tell us what you'd like to know about your application, and then we'll go from there.
I wonder if I should go first, Tim.
Absolutely. You could be the MC. Go for it.
Not familiar with the process, but Adrian, my wife, and I were the owners of 248 Prince George Street. We've owned the house since 2012. So what we've been discussing with, obviously there's an easement on our house with historical Annapolis. What we've been discussing, is, the improvement of, our COVID cell, if you'd like, in terms of, the garden and vicinity. And we started off with a rooftop deck and also a deck off the first floor. But, on advice from the historic Annapolis, John and others, we've obviously regrouped and just gone for a balcony off the rear. The balcony off the rear, we feel is, consistent with the upkeep of the house and similar to, balconies that we've seen in the area. And I think will, enhance the property and, other than what we're about to hear, we've made the plans available to our immediate neighbours, and feel it's in keeping with what we've seen in other balconies that have actually been built in the area. So we're here hopefully for a successful submission of something we think will, enhance the property. And we've used obviously Jay and Peter as our architects on advice forthwith. So, that's our opening statement.
Okay. I think the commissioners have an opportunity to review the plans that we've seen. Commissioners, are you interested in asking clarifying questions, or would you like to look in any detail at the plans? Because either Jay or Peter could show them. I have reviewed them. I think we all have. Relatively simple, straightforward exterior change.
Yeah,
I agree.
agreed.
Okay.
Agree.
No clarifying questions? Okay. Then let me shift over here. We had two items of public testimony. One submitted on January 25th from Nathan Martin, who lists his address at 60 College Avenue. So it must be associated with St. John's College in some way. Both John and I saw the address and say, we recognize that address. So I'll read that into the record. In reference to chapter 2162.020 of the city code, the altered facade, which is very visible from College Avenue, will not be in compliance with section B5, which states that an altered facade shall have a relation to the street compatible with surrounding and adjoining buildings. The proposed deck is justified by its relation to the adjoining buildings deck. However, the deck's proposed utilization of a cable rail and minimal sumptuous sconce do not have a relationship to the adjoining buildings decks or other decks which are viewable from College Avenue. Instead, the proposed fixtures outwardly are in juxtaposition to the other decks on the street. The decks are composed of wood or wrought iron, and the sconces have a much less minimal sumptuous design that would make this addition on the back-facing facade look rather distasteful. I propose a sconce that its relationship to the sconces on the front of the building, and a deck railing that it relates to the other homes located on Prince George Street that are viewable from College Avenue, or a similar wrought iron to the wrought iron window on the window boxes in the front facade of the house. Okay. We'll have an opportunity to discuss that in a minute. Incidentally, for the public watching, you do have an opportunity to join the meeting if you in advance. If you want to submit any comments ever, you can check a box and we can invite you to the meeting. But in this case, that was not requested. The next one comes from Karen Brown, who represents Historic Annapolis. Historic Annapolis holds an easement on the property of 248 Prince George Street. We have been working with the city HPD staff, the property owner, and the architect on the proposed decking on the rear of the two-story addition, and we appreciate the consultation that led to this iteration of the project. The project has been modified to accommodate our concerns, and we are in support of the revised application. The impact of the streetscape is minimized, and the impact to the historic fabric is reduced, as the location of the proposed alteration is in an area that was previously modified. HA is in agreement with the staff recommendation to change the proposed new wood door from simulated divided light to true divided light, and thank you for the opportunity to comment. Okay. So with that, I'll close public testimony. And then commissioners, any thoughts on that public testimony, or would the applicant like to respond to the negative comments regarding the railing design and the light fixtures?
Sorry, go ahead.
Tim?
Yeah, go ahead.
Since you asked for our comments, I would say that with John and Karen recommending approval as they have, and with my own review, I appreciate the public's input and concern, but I do not share the concerns of the person who submitted the testimony.
Okay. Other commissioners?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I think that I would agree as well. The design, it's important that the designs that we approve are consistent with our guidelines, and our guidelines specifically say do not try to recreate historic false sense of history. And the design is simple and differentiated and doesn't have an adverse impact on the historic fabric. So that's the way I would state the fact that it is actually in compliance. It's a hard discussion sometimes to explain to people, but we do not want to replicate existing historic designs
Right.
on a new construction.
Exactly correct.
Thank you, Jay. Um,
Thank you.
That's why but we need to have that discussion. Okay. Any further conversation on that? All right, then deliberations, any further deliberations, or are we ready to move to a motion?
We need to mention that the style of French door was changed from simulated divided light to.
Thank you. Yes, so that changed the actual, we appreciate that change at the recommendation of both John and HA. So that is a revision to the staff report, in fact.
So that goes from then a conditional to a recommendation of just a straight approval.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. And in the record, you'll see the exhibits that before we actually take the motion, let me go ahead and verbally read the exhibits into the application. So Kimberly, I'm going to pull up my email and read those in.
Tim, I have a comment.
Oh, sure, Kevin, go ahead.
On the staff report, there was some extra pages appended to the end that weren't applicable to this.
It's true. They had something to do with the garage. Right.
So get those removed from the.
Yes, of course.
Yes. John, in the revised application, the revised staff report that you sent today, were those removed, or do we need to?
No, I'll remove them and enter them back into the record.
Okay.
Extraneous from a template.
From cut and paste.
Right. Oh yeah, I do cut
Cutting
and
and
paste.
pasting.
Mhm.
Okay. So the exhibits are, Kim will number them for us, but the application is dated January 4th, 2022. We have public comment number 1, Nathan Martin, dated January 25th, 2022. The ABS letter to staff dated February 7th regarding the true divided light. Public comment from Karen Brown from AHA dated February 8th, and the revised staff report, which will be dated February 9th. John, why don't you do that so we can
Okay.
differentiate it? Okay. All right. I can take a motion now, please.
I move that we approve the application for 248 Prince George Street because it is consistent with guidelines B1, D3, and the Secretary of the Interior Standards number 3 and number 9.
Second.
Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay. Thank you very much.
Could I
Thank you.
mention one thing? Thank
course.
you. Thank you, Youngs. You were wonderful to work with.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Jay. Although, Jay,
Thank
I
you.
only see you going out the door these days.
Thank you, John.
One day.
One day, okay.
Thanks so much for all your help.
Thank you.
Thank you, the commission. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Next on the agenda is pre-application for 9 Southgate Avenue. I think there's Bill William, who has just joined us.
I apologize, but as I saw at the end of what you were doing, I couldn't have anything to do with it anyways.
Okay, that's fine. All right,
All right.
great. So welcome to the McLaughlins and the gang at Purple Cherry. This is a pre-application, as you know, and we need your acknowledgement that a pre-application is a courtesy extended for a design review to the applicant in advance of a complete application, and nothing should be construed as approval or denial of that in this discussion. Our final discussion will be based on your final application. So can you please acknowledge that?
Yes.
All right, great. And this is a pre-application, so we don't need to swear you in. If you were wondering about that, you saw the swearing in process a minute ago. That happens with our formal votes. We won't be voting. All right. So thank you for coming back with the changes, and we have your changes in review, and there's quite a bit to discuss. So perhaps I could recommend that we've read this once before and we've provided you feedback. If the other commissioners are in agreement, if you could focus us on what changed from last time to this time, and we can discuss the feedback that was provided last time and how you responded to that.
That's fine with us. That's fine.
Okay, you're amenable to that? Okay.
Thank you for having us again. We're actually going to have Matt and Carrie start us out tonight, and then we'll pick up right after them.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so we just wanted to say, thank you very much. We definitely worked on the feedback, and I'll let the experts talk about what we changed. I really just wanted to very briefly, just make sure that it was really clear what we're trying to do, which is, this is a property that, has been neglected for some time. It is going to require, a substantial amount of work and rehabilitation. And we're really excited to do that and to, get it in compliance with various aspects of the design guidelines, while also making it functional for us. We are not investors. I came to Annapolis first as a midshipman a long time ago, and we plan to live there for many decades and pass it on to our family as well. So everything that we're proposing, including, making it accessible for something hopefully we don't need in the future, but just in case we do, is really designed for us, for this to become our family's property for many decades. So that's really what we're trying to accomplish, is to make this a multi-generational family property, while also taking the opportunity to rehabilitate it and ensure it's in compliance with the design guidelines. So we're really excited. We thank you for the work that you've done so far across our two applications or pre-applications, and we're excited to keep going forward.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so part of our submission was a comment letter addressing the comments from last time, so we'll just go down that. I'm going to share my screen just so we can look at some perspectives and talk about that.
That's good.
So the first point that we had was, the comment that we received was, the need to remove 2 original dormers will need to be further substantiated. To emphasize the importance of the dormers as character defining features, we are no longer proposing to remove those 2 dormers, nor are we proposing to add 2 additional dormers. That was from our last pre-application. So both dormers are staying as is, minus some slight alterations on the 3rd floor for the roof deck, but we'll get there. And then the second comment was, the commissioners agreed that the overall scale of the addition does not appear subordinate to the original house, so additional work is needed to bring it in compliance with Guideline B6. So per Guideline B6, we looked at everything, and the roof addition is designed with setbacks, and I'll go to the floor plan so we can take a look at that there. So, if you see on the first floor plan, our existing house is what you see in this shaded area, and the new portion is this wood hatch. So as you can see, we are set back from our existing structure, and we are using a change of materials. So our original house is brick, and we're doing a wood paneling and wood siding system. And also go to the elevations if we need to. Just gonna jump back and forth during this presentation. So I think the easiest way to see it is here. We have our existing brick. And then we do siding on both sides with that panel system. And then the third comment we received was, the flat roof and trim are feasible, but the use of the roof as a deck is not feasible given Guideline D9, protection of the overall character, and the removal of the window for access is discouraged. So we would still like to file for the roof deck, but what we've done is increase the slope of the roof so you no longer see the walls that we used to have. So now the entire roof is encapsulating the roof deck, And we've got additional railings, so we've got 42 inches of height there for safety. And we are proposing to change the windows in the dormer to a door for access to that roof deck. But as you can see, it's still 2 fixed panels and a French door instead of just 4 casements across. So it's still keeping in character. It's just a door instead of a window. And then the 4th comment we received was Guideline A3 Views from the water. So here, this would be helpful for our perspectives. Views from the water also having a bearing on the size of the addition. So we did some perspectives from across the water, and as you can see, it's pretty keeping in with the neighborhood. You can see the other elevated decks in 3, 5, 7, and then 11 on the other side. I think I got those numbers right. And so we are surrounded by elevated decks, and some are open, some are enclosed. This just kind of shows everything that we've got going on around us. And then for number 5, regarding the fenestration and the percentage of glass on our waterfront facade, we put together a diagram of all facades just to alleviate any additional questions on the fenestration. And we are under the 33% on our north elevation. We're actually at 26.5% of glass on that side. And then our last comment we received was, in addition to the replacement of windows, in addition, the replacement of windows will be contingent upon window survey. We have decided we are not going to replace the windows. We reached out to a contact that John Tower connected us with, and he let us know that he's very comfortable restoring the windows. Okay, so obviously we're proposing new windows on the new portion of the house, but we're restoring as many windows as possible. And then we spoke with John on the side. If we are during construction and we find out that we do have to restore a window, that'll be an administrative application per each window. Should we ever get to that point, we'll work directly with John on that one. And then we did have an addition of a landscape plan this time, and we just wanted to point out a couple things. We are proposing to restore the driveway in all brick. We don't want to change that material. They love that very much. And we're doing bamboo mitigation over here, so we're not blocking our water views, the neighbors' water views. And it shows the garage, but that's the next one. Other than that, we'll have a conversation about it. Matt and Carrie, is there anything else you want to add before we?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks. Thanks for setting that up. Why don't we go ahead and have a discussion, and just go ahead in the sequence that you just presented there, Carrie, or Maria. The dormers, thank you for complying with that. The roof structure doesn't change, and that was important. The next one was the overall scale of the building and its compliance with D6. So what commissioners effectively, I think that what Maria is saying is, as designed in previous, that they felt it was in compliance because the scale has not changed and the detail and has not changed. And the materials haven't changed. So what are other commissioners' thoughts on that?
No news is good news, right?
Oh, well, please comment, commissioners. I have my thoughts, but I will hold.
Well, for me, we've requested differentiation, and I think we want more than we currently have. I mean, not being an architect, I struggle with what is the norm for something like this. And I'm hoping that one of my co-commissioners here, who is an architect, can perhaps give me some additional information in terms of what would be considered enough differentiation so that the addition to this house, I understand it's a different material, and I understand there is some differentiation, but what could we potentially be looking for that would be considered, you know, appropriate in this
Maybe I
type of
can
situation?
guide the discussion. It's not differentiation in V6, it's subordination. It's
Well, that's what I mean. I'm sorry. That's
it's subordination.
right.
And subordination can come in terms of massing, height, scale, and detail. And
They've done the detail. I mean, obviously
Well,
it's not a brick addition. It
that's
is a large
differentiation, but
addition.
it's not subordination necessarily. It should be designed with setbacks. That's how we can be subordinate. The height is another aspect of massing. It should be, and these are things we apply to all additions.
Right.
The setbacks here I calculated are it looks to me to be 1 foot 3 inches. I think on each side. Maria, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Just about a foot from the existing.
Just about a foot. It's less than 6% of the width, the length of the building is setback. That's so.
I would ask, is that something that's going to be visible from a lot of the areas that this house is seen from, especially from the water? Is that going to be enough subordination that it's clear to someone viewing the house that this is an addition?
I think these perspectives are a really great indication that it's a clear addition. I don't see any relationship or any false sense of historic structure. We're obviously a different material, but as well as you can clearly identify that there is a setback, and you can clearly see the existing massing. We're obviously paying respect to the existing dormers and roof structure, proposing the flat roof. So to answer your question, is that I feel like that it is, and I think this is a great indication providing that. And obviously, as you can see, it's respecting the adjacent neighboring structures. And I feel like the design and structure fits in very well and is in keeping with the neighborhood.
Other commissioners?
Tim?
Yeah, well.
I think I missed one of the other work sessions, so I'm coming into this with not as complete a context for the rest of you. So I want to say that up front. But when I look at what has been submitted and these photographs from the water, there is a lot of building around the site and on the site. And the idea that this subordinate status should be more obvious seems to me to be a rather subjective judgment to be made here. And given all of that, I think what's proposed seems very reasonable and as identifiably subordinate as it could be without shrinking its size substantially or something like that that would really call more attention to it. So I guess at the moment, I don't have any problem with what's proposed.
Thank you, Will.
If I may?
Of course.
Please.
I looked at this presentation earlier. I'm looking at it again now. I keep trying to hope I see something different. The house on itself has a new water face.
Mm-hmm.
It is not the house that was there, and we cannot expect it to be the house that was there because an addition is being done. The house kind of dominates the site despite the other construction immediately around it is the very prominent building. To put something on that side of the house that is shorter, narrower, whatever else, would diminish the presence of the building. What this appears to be to me, even in a historic sense, is a porch that was added, a sun porch, if you would, that's added after the house was built. It is recessed back from both sides. The house still dominates the addition. And it doesn't do anything to diminish the house that I can point at. So I find it a favorable presentation. Is that enough rambling?
No, that's fine. Kevin, Leslie?
So, you know, I understand the desire to just take total advantage of that just unbelievable view. But I find that the way that the addition is massing, it dominates the water view, and maybe and perhaps there could be a way to like have the upper floor step back slightly so that you're not seeing this. It's almost like a cube or a block that's just stuck on the back. So the character of the house is kind of diminished from that. That's just my.
Okay. All right. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on the addition sizing. You know, these are small pictures, and this house will always be viewed at a distance. So there's the challenge of how much narrower it needs to be, and the depth of the addition is quite significant compared to the original depth of the house. So I guess I'm not convinced yet.
Okay. Kim, do you have thoughts? Kim Finch? Thoughts on the massing?
Can I jump in while we're waiting? Is there anything within the guidelines in terms of the massing that you would identify that we should revisit specifically?
I can read it to you.
We've read it probably 100 times, but if there's something specific you'd like to point out, please, Tim.
The concept of, in terms of subordination, massing, height, scale, and detail. In other applications with other, the subordination comes in the offset or hyphens. If you look around the neighboring other applications that we have done, an addition could be offset with a hyphen. That's one solution that has been employed in the past. And again, what we're trying to do is apply these guidelines consistently. So that it has to do, so that's the beginning of that discussion. Also subordinate in terms of detail. And this is a very elaborate detailed design. There's differentiation is one issue, which is clear, but it's become a very formal decorative aspect against a very simple brick building. And so I personally don't believe it's compliant in terms of detail, subordinate in terms of detail. So I think those are how I would take that information away, and that is written, you know, into the guidelines.
Tim, is there anything specifically that within the detail that you feel is in excess? I think what our intention was, and I think as Bill and Will both pointed out very well, was the idea was it was an existing structure, it was an existing porch deck that was enclosed. It obviously shows a scale of time that, you know, through whatever. The idea that it was over time developed and further developed into a finished space. So obviously we're trying to respect the existing massing with what essentially it's a mansard roof, but
don't use that word.
Okay, I'm not going to use that word. Take that back.
Well, mansard roofs are specifically another guideline, and roof shapes under B8.
It is a short slope flat roof, essentially to respect the existing massing and not take away from existing dormers, which we do agree and we appreciate and feel that are very important to keep. So is there anything specifically that jumps out at you that you would recommend? Obviously, I'm not asking you to tell me.
Well, I'm only one commissioner. I'm only one commissioner, but for me, again, it's not for me to design for you, but the elaborate moldings and decoration on this do not make it subordinate to the design of the historic structure. So that would be an example of my position, but I'm only one commissioner. You've heard from.
Understood. No, I appreciate that. And obviously we've gone to great lengths of trying to simplify, but obviously differentiate from the existing structure. So we can.
Well, you didn't change at all from your last, the massing has not changed. So I'm not sure I agree that you've gone to great lengths. So.
Are there any additional comments or feedback for us?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't know how to like do this, but if the addition could be reversed, then with the cutout on the water side, I would be more convinced, because it would seem to be, it would show that setback significantly. I realize that's a big ask, but that's my concern, is how deep the addition is on the viewable side, where you would be meeting the guidelines on if it was reversed, because there would be the big step back where the stairs are, I think.
Unfortunately, we still have to access our garage, so that's kind of how that came about. So we can look into other ways of doing bigger setbacks on the water side like you're talking about, but unfortunately we can't just reverse it.
Of course, appreciate that.
I think the most important thing to understand is that while the perspectives we're showing right now are the most visible, obviously these are viewed by probably the fewest number of people. From the street, you cannot actually see any aspect of the addition. So obviously we're trying to respect the nature of the home. But again, this is the most viewable area of the home, which is probably going to be rarely seen. But I do recognize that it's obviously counts on the water side as well.
Yeah, and as you know, we try to apply our guidelines consistently to all applicants, and it doesn't matter whether it's viewable from the street or not, but specifically views from the water are protected under Guideline A3. And I would say that these photographs here actually kind of go to a certain extent, prove my point. Look at how it overwhelms the small house below, which, if I'm not mistaken, was that Sinclair Wright's home?
It's owned by the Biddles now. I can't remember.
Yeah. At any rate, I don't believe this is consistent with there's some pretty big houses, clearly, but I do think it draws attention to itself, which is going. I think Kevin's idea of flipping the floor plan might set it back, but I just think that a greater differentiation, a greater reveal, I guess, a setback to show that this is smaller. And again, Leslie's idea of possibly breaking down that line on the top. Again, I don't want to design for you. I'm just trying to give you some examples.
Understood.
A couple of clarifying questions, Tim.
Sure, well.
Okay. That smaller house, that's the one with the mansard roof. That's what you're referring to?
Yeah.
And that is a home. That's not an accessory structure to the larger building on the street.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
It's a second home.
But right, it's a home. It's a dwelling. Yes.
And then the house in question that we're reviewing, there's a brick mass to the far left as I'm looking at the photographs.
Yes.
That's the garage?
That's the garage of this, and we reviewed that and gave a favorable ruling on that one.
Yeah. So the other final thing is maybe the architects can help me here. What is here versus what you proposed? How much further towards the water will the new addition advance? How many feet?
We will.
Why don't you scroll back there?
No, just go ahead and jump to the floor plan. We'll just jump to the floor plan real quick so
exactly.
You can fully understand. So no.
So 8 feet, and then the porch is an additional 15.
So 23 feet.
23 feet.
And the top level is a fully solid mass. The lower level is a porch and a solid mass.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that information. And so I would just reiterate, this is a very large house in a very densely developed shoreline. It's still going to be a very large house on a very densely developed shoreline. And at the moment, I'm comfortable with what's being proposed. I don't know what you could do other than shrinking the whole addition that could substantially make it subordinate. And I don't know that that would make, because it's difficult to divine. I don't know if that would satisfy anyone's concerns who is concerned about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tim,
for that.
question for you. What are your thoughts on the rooftop deck?
Let's go to that next.
Okay.
I have strong feelings on that. So, but okay, so you've heard you've heard some of us have reservations about the massing. Some don't. So take that on board. I still would say that the level of detail, simplifying the level of detail, would also make it subordinate and making it less formal. This looks like it's attached to a very elaborate, fancy house when you've got a very simple brick structure.
Understood. Thank you, Tim.
That's
I would agree with that as one approach to address the concerns that have been raised.
I think that's definitely an option that we can review.
All right. Okay. Then let's move, if we're okay, if everyone, any further comments on massing in B6?
Can I speak?
Of course.
Okay. So this is a minor point, but in the pictures, the porch area on other houses, for instance, number 3, I think it's number 3, it might be number 7, the Mulligan house, which is 3 doors down.
Is that the white one?
Well, it's
That one?
that one. So if you look at that, the on the there's a garden level, and then above that there are windows. Those windows in the picture register as black. On the
Right.
3rd floor, there's a porch and
Correct.
a balcony, and that's open and light. And I think that that's consistent in your pictures. However, for what you've shown for the porch on the proposed addition, it's very dark. And I don't think it's going to register as quite that amount of mass in the daylight. I don't think it's going to be that dark. So I think in some ways it's done you a disservice, because I'm not sure that it's really going to look quite that sunless inside that open porch.
Yeah.
It's just a point, but I thought, oh, okay, well, this is, especially in the top photo, it's just black.
Yeah, no, John, you're correct. And honestly, that is partially of the general, what I'll say is a general of trying to render the design. But I would agree with you. I think based on where the sun exposure is, it will not necessarily appear as dark. Definitely the top left, I would agree, did us a slight disservice. So, but thank you for pointing that out.
Well, since you've drawn our attention to that, one of the ways that building to the right there, they've clipped the corners there and added, it's a different design, but that would reduce mass as well. They made that somewhat octagonal, which breaks that edge down. That's another example of reducing mass.
Exactly.
Oh, full disclosure, I worked on that. It was,
Wait, which one, John?
It was built by Horizon Builders. I think it was 1988. Boy, oh boy.
You're dating yourself, dude.
Yeah, big time.
I don't think I need to date myself. I'm kind of, I kind of wear it.
Yeah.
How'd you get your license at that early age?
There you go. Okay. So then let's move on to the roof deck, and commissioners, and the guideline here is D9.
Yeah.
And it distinguishes between roof decks and porches, and roof decks on the top story, which is, I believe, what we need to focus on. Thoughts? That this changed a bit. I'm actually, I don't really see the change, to tell you the truth.
Sorry, Tim, was that thoughts to us or the commissioners?
Well, the commissioners, I personally don't see that this changes my previous. I'm not persuaded that any design changes change my opinion of this as not being compliant.
Tim, could you just say a little bit more about how you feel it is in non-compliance?
Well, under
D9.
overall protection of character under D9, it specifically says roofscapes are visually prominent at high elevations, and roof front waterscapes are silhouetted from the water. Alterations or that diminish or conceal these character-defining features are discouraged. Rooftop decks are highly visible and strongly discouraged.
Gotcha. Thank you. So let me ask a question of the architects for clarification before I say more. What you're proposing, I think, is 42 inches from the deck to the top of the railing?
That would be correct.
That's required. Okay. That's code.
Okay, that's code. So you don't have that. That's where I was going with that. So you have to make it that deep.
No, code would actually be 36 inches.
Oh.
Obviously, just because it is because of the height and obviously the sloping hill, we desire 42 inches. We're certainly willing to drop further. I think the biggest item that we're trying to achieve here is not overscale the existing structure or mass, as well as pay respect to the existing dormers. So it appears that it's clearly an addition and we are not taking away from the existing character.
Well, if I'm reading the drawings in your materials correctly, it seems like it's a very solid face that's presented to the water. Am I correct?
The first 36 inches are on that railing you see is the additional 6 inches.
Just the original 6 inches, the additional 6 inches.
Yeah, actually, now that I said that out loud, I believe it's actually a foot and the railing is 30 inches.
Correct.
Yeah. Well,
sorry about that.
To me, it would visually have less impact if it were penetrated more. It was more open, if that is some possibility. But overall, I'm okay with it. I'm just, we're trying to work towards a solution that's satisfactory to everyone.
Certainly, and I think that's something we're willing to consider. And obviously, we could, by code, reduce the railing height. Obviously, not as desired, but we're willing. That's something. And I'll let Matt and Carrie jump in if I'm misspeaking, but I think it's something we're willing to consider.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Other commissioners' thoughts of compliance with D9?
I think the railing on the addition takes away from the original roof design of it. To me, it takes something away from the main building that was there. I don't know what, just that whole railing to me kind of ruins the roof line of the main house, which to me is one of the pretty things about the simple original house. And I agree it's a roof deck, and it's my understanding that those are non-compliant, so.
Thank you. Bob, a quick question for you. Obviously, we recognize HPC says it's strongly not, it's discouraged.
Right.
In terms of, obviously, the biggest thing we're trying to achieve is just not overtaking the roof, and obviously with the mass and a steeper pitch completing itself would. If pretend the roof pitch, and I'm just saying this, and I know again you're not telling us how to design, if we were to remove what is aesthetically the entire railing and increase the pitch of that roof or reduce that, as in you visually would not see that line, do you feel that would kind of help resolve that because it would essentially almost disappear?
I'm not sure what you mean by which roof are you reducing the pitch on, the addition?
I'm sorry, we would increase the pitch on the addition to mitigate or remove the railing as possibly an option. Obviously, we recognize there are certain materials of railing that are not supported. And I think that's the biggest balance that we're trying to find right now.
So if that happens, is it still a functional roof deck then?
We would wish for it to remain a functional roof deck, yes. Ultimately, the roof design is intended to be a flat roof. And at the point we have a flat roof, I think it's very functional. Obviously, what we know is any roof is going to require access, and I think that is a great way to have access. And I think if we're able to achieve a roof deck as well, I think that would be nice. I don't think it's something that anybody would ever see, notice, or even feel. I don't think it looks like a roof deck. So I think in terms of the guidelines, it's meeting all the requirements.
I mean, obviously when I read the guideline that says they're strongly discouraged, to me, it's the appearance that that is having issues. So if you're saying it won't look like a roof deck, I don't know. I'm torn. I mean, I certainly get your point, and I'm torn. I mean, because
and I agree with that 100%. And I think that's our intent: is it doesn't look or smell like a roof deck. So
when is a roof deck not a roof deck? Yeah.
Yeah, it's there, but nobody will ever see nor notice.
So it's kind of difficult for me to recall here. The roof that's surrounding the deck, was that a portion of the original house?
No.
Or is that added to accommodate the addition?
That's added
Yeah,
to accommodate the condition, the
addition,
excuse me.
yes.
Yeah.
So
Is a similar
you
slate.
know, because this adds to that vertical mass that's so drastic. And I'm thinking that if maybe to keep the sides of that parapet, so to speak, but then maybe to remove the front portion of that roof to just make that a railing going across, might remove some of that mass that makes it so thick. That's just my personal opinion.
Leslie, I love that idea. However, I think we are intentionally trying for it not to appear as a roof deck, which is why we are proposing the roofing. But trust me, if you would support railings all around, I would love it. But obviously we're trying to abide by the HBC guidelines, which we don't want it to look like a roof deck.
I don't think you can get away from that aspect.
Yeah, I think by possibly, as Bobby suggested, modifying the railing or reducing that, and possibly slightly altering the roof, I think we can minimize that. I think the biggest thing that we're also being very sensitive is just, we don't want to take over the existing structure. I think this addition is very appealing, and I think it works very well to the existing structure. And it's clearly denoted as an addition. It's not a false sense of history.
Okay, who haven't we heard from on the roof deck? Bill Williams, what are your thoughts on compliance with D9? Overall character diminished by a roof deck.
The way the roof deck currently is disguised, I would like to see it actually disguised a little further and get rid of any pretense of a railing along the top. Even if that just became a solid little parapet wall, as if that was a flat roof up there.
Certainly. I think that's feasible.
Because I think that little strip of railing just attracts the eye to the fact that it is indeed a deck.
Yep.
Very doable.
Thank you.
Okay. Kim, do you want to chime in on the roof deck?
Now, I have to say that when you have a it looks like the bottom portion, that railing looks awfully dark right there. But in reality, when, if that railing is done correctly, it would bleed away, and you wouldn't really notice it that much. It would not be as noticeable. As long as it wasn't white.
Thank you.
Okay. So you're hearing feedback. I personally still, the way the guidelines read, it talks about silhouette. the silhouette isn't as strong against a roof as a rooftop deck that's slammed right on top of a flat roof at the peak. That's somewhat mitigating, but I still feel that it is not in compliance, and have in the past when we see requests for rooftop decks, which this clearly is, we have denied them. So I still do not feel it's compliant with that. But again, I'm only one commissioner.
Understood. Thank you.
John, John
We
Tower
jump
thoughts?
To the next section, or, oh, sorry.
No, John hadn't heard John's thoughts on rooftop decks.
Well, this commission and the guidelines are consistent with regard to rooftop decks. And I can't remember when a rooftop deck was approved. So it's a tough sell. Even though I think you've done a good job of concealing it. And that's a difficulty in terms of your redesign. I appreciate what you've done here, and there is differentiation between old and new. The massing, especially in these pictures, I think is somewhat exaggerated by the darkness of the first floor porch.
Yeah.
However, the second floor then.
Just focusing on the roof deck, though.
Oh, you want me to just focus on that? Okay.
Yeah, we've covered the mass.
Okay, well then I've said what I need to about that. It's a difficult thing to get approved. Other people have recently submitted in pre-application for it, and it has not been found feasible. So I have to go with the guidelines on this.
Okay.
Highly visible, strongly discouraged. This one is not highly visible, but in keeping with all of them, they're strongly discouraged.
It doesn't happen to be silhouetted either,
Right.
but I still feel it's not feasible. That's just me.
However,
Bill.
I will say you have maintained most of the appearance of the roof form, and if there's the possibility of changing the railing as it has been discussed, you might have a positive approach. You might be one of the very few who gets a positive review.
If that's the case, it needs to be
Thank
clear
you,
in the
John.
reasoning. Bill has a comment.
I'm sorry for not bringing this up later, but I've been thinking about this and trying to figure out what was the problem. And I got to thinking about the fact that they want to put a door on here. Yes, it is a deck. They're going to come out there. Where's the table? Where's the chairs? Where's the couple of
The umbrellas.
over the tables? Suddenly you have a party deck up there. I mean, those are things
That's
we don't
exactly
have
right.
control over once it becomes a deck.
Correct.
So
You can put furniture on there to put in the perspective, but all the furniture would be
I would-
below that
yeah.
36-inch railing.
I think ultimately what we would choose.
umbrellas would not, and that would be a perfect place to have an umbrella because it's rather warm up
And
there.
Matt, you get the tan up there, you don't get umbrellas.
We cannot, once the deck goes on, the owners can bring whatever they want onto it.
I will make sure they don't
We'll
have
have them
umbrellas
sign a
up
letter.
Yeah,
And have special exceptions to that regard.
we'll sign off.
Lighting is another aspect to this.
Understood.
I'm sorry to bring that one up, but
No, I think it's
that would
appropriate.
bother me.
It's
That
the
would
whole
bother me.
idea.
Very good point.
That
Yeah.
would bother me.
It's an
What
inconsistent
could go
use.
on up there?
Yeah, it's an inconsistent use in the neighborhood.
Get a couple of those flame heaters up there, the flame tubes, they look great.
Well, again, it goes to the neighborhood and the roofscapes that surround it, and it's simply not consistent with the roofscapes around it.
So I guess, sorry, but I just maybe had a question about that because there are sort of roof decks over living spaces in the three most adjacent properties at 3, 5, and 7 Southgate that, are, as you can see, are highly visible. So I guess you know, in terms of, you know, and just my own review of the guidelines, it didn't feel inconsistent when viewing from the water in terms of, you know, there being these elevated decks over living spaces. I obviously do not know the exact definition of what constitutes a rooftop deck versus just an elevated deck over a living space, or if there is a difference. But I guess that was sort of why, from a consistency standpoint, you know, the three most immediately adjacent properties all had the same characteristic.
No, it's a valid question, Matt. And when this has come up in the last 2 years, we have made a distinction between a porch that is covered and a deck, a rooftop deck, and they tend to be on lower stories. And you would not want to. We're not recommending that you put a roof over this to turn it into a porch. But that is the distinction between what you see to the right in these pictures and what you're proposing. This is a deck instead of a porch, and it came up on Prince George Street in the application we just approved, and it came up last year in exactly the same situation. So we kind of are on record making a differentiation between a porch and a deck.
So, okay, so I guess that covers number 3, which is the Mulligan House, but 5 and 7 are still uncovered, right?
No, is that 5? Is
Yeah,
or 7?
5 and 7
But there's,
are both.
They're also
they're over elevated living space. They're not at the highest level, like,
got it.
you know, but yes,
Exactly. It's at the highest level, and it's a roof, and it's a deck on top of a roof, as opposed to a balcony, if you will. That's another term, but it's the scale of this is also very large. So that's the differentiation we've made in the past, and we've had to. That's my position. So again, only one. That's the way I read the guidelines, and I'm not persuaded that this is compliant.
So the previous application had a rooftop deck that was removed from the application because it was deemed that it wasn't feasible. So just letting you know, it's the HPC is really pretty consistent on this aspect of its review.
But every application stands on its own too. So
And
both
John,
the goods and the bads.
I would like to, I think our understanding with the HPC guidelines are basically strongly suggesting that it does not look like a rooftop deck, or it's not a rooftop decks are not suggested because of the appearance. So my understanding or interpretation of the guidelines is if it doesn't look and smell like a rooftop deck, then it's generally could be supported. And I think what I'm generally hearing is that could be supported.
Yeah, you're hearing a split opinion. Agreed.
Right. And you said, I think there's discussion that you're going to try to address some of the commissioner's comments with regard to the appearance of increased massing created by the roof extension. So
I would agree. I think we've heard very positive feedback from all commissioners with great suggestions and concerns that I feel that we can address.
Again, I'm the sole. Even if you take that railing away and add, make it more solid, then you're kind of conflicting with my opinion that the building that you're not subordinate. So I'm still conflicted personally. But again,
All right, we have to convince Tim. I'm okay with it.
Well, I'm only one vote, so you don't have to convince just me.
No, I appreciate your feedback, Tim, though.
Okay.
Should we jump to the next comment from previous? Because I think that we're trying to kind of run through the list.
Yep. I think the next one we handled, didn't we? All the fenestration. I'm sorry. We skipped the 33%.
Sure.
I think
Maria did a great job.
Did the commissioners look at the math and agree with it?
Graphic representations?
That's what we've asked for in the past, and it appears it's 20. If you scroll down to that.
There we go.
It's actually, and here's a question. I think I always thought that the north facade was the facade that faced north, rather than you looking north. Am I wrong? Was I trained incorrectly?
That's the way I usually label them.
Yeah, so this is the south facade, I believe.
This is the south facade.
Yeah. So
I'm
just
sorry. I don't
same-
know if I said north or not. We'll fix it.
the same with the east and the west.
Take it from an artist, South Light.
Right. Yeah. So I just caught that as what? So
Okay.
you're looking north, but it's actually on the south side of the house, I believe, but who knows?
We will not allow you to change cardinal directions for your project.
Okay.
Now I don't know.
In the code, we will not
My,
allow it.
my architecture degree is from 1976.
Well,
We did
can
not use computers, so maybe computers have changed it. I don't know.
Okay.
All right. Next.
So if you would you mind scrolling just to those numbers for us to show?
Absolutely, Tim.
Yeah.
And Marie has it memorized.
It's the south facade, or the water facing facade had the appearance, and you did not include the roof, I believe, in this facade when we're calculating, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So you'll see there's no hatch pattern over the roof. At least
Yeah.
that was our interpretation.
Yeah. So the amount of glass is, I think it says 20.
26.5.
All right. So I think you've satisfied our request.
Awesome.
Any commissioners have any questions about that? That's just.
So the renderings are a little different from the actual elevations.
No.
No, this is just a diagram highlighting
Yeah.
glass versus facade. It's
Okay.
the same elevation.
Okay.
The one thing on the rendering is it sort of suggests that the face closest to the water goes all the way across the back of the building.
It does, and it actually
It
steps
does,
back.
and that
And
makes
it
it look
only-
hugely different.
And it only
steps back.
goes, what, 2/3, maybe a little
Half,
less?
maybe.
There is a
That's
jog
back.
in the actual perspective, so I do agree with you that it is generally a little bit hard to understand or distinguish, but
Yeah, it does step back.
there's about a 2/3 at the end, and then it steps back into a bay.
Yeah. And that was Kevin's idea, that to swap these two, you might reduce the massing, but
Well,
I think this is a great representation that does that.
the mass is broken more than the pictures.
Yeah, I
Represent.
totally
Oh.
agree, John.
Yeah.
yeah, on this perspective, it is subordinate. It's the east facade where I still feel it is not subordinate. So,
Maybe it's possible for you to re-render it and kind of show this.
Absolutely.
It's
view from the
confusing.
garage. Yeah.
Well, the east side is still going to have the presence of the full projection.
Yes, correct. That's was my concern.
But when you look at this in from the side, you see how much it actually steps back as you're looking at it from the water view on the left-hand side, it steps back considerably more
Got it.
than what it looks like in the rendering.
Agreed.
Tim,
And the detail is less elaborate as well.
Tim, I think this is all very worthwhile discussion, but I
Yep.
think that we all could be helped to make our final decision with photographs from the 4 cardinal directions.
Exactly.
Because my concern at the moment about this issue goes back to what I was saying earlier. This whole area is very densely developed. I don't know how much you're going to be able to see of the east side, which, but if I have a good picture, then we'll all understand better
agreed.
what can actually be seen.
So
Agreed.
can you go back to the side view? I just wanted to where you have the water view and the side view together, but I think it was 29. Yeah. Okay. So as you're looking at the quote north elevation side view, so it's kind of confusing, the roof line here. When I'm looking at it from the actual water and from the side view, that porch looks really there's there's just something strange and wonky going on there.
I think what's a little
Can't figure it out.
confusing is this is a graphic representation of our fenestration.
Yeah,
Diagram, so if we jump
Okay.
back to our perspective, and I totally get what you're saying. I think this might be a little
yeah,
easier to understand or read. We're trying to like break it down as much as we possibly can for you guys.
sure, I understand.
Does that help at all?
Yeah, I mean, when I'm looking at the elevations themselves, I have a different feeling about things. So I don't know, Tim, would you say that maybe if they redid like you said, well, it's like Will said, all the different sides to get a better perspective as far as the photographs.
No, I agree with that. And my concern is the massing of the building on the east side and the level of detail of the trim. It is not subordinate to the main structure. This is more subordinate. It's obviously much smaller and less decorative.
Exactly.
Tim, is it the perspectives that do the perspectives make it appear that it's more decorative than it truly is?
Yes.
Possibly.
Understood.
A lot more mullions,
Mullions trim.
It almost looks like a jewelry box.
Yes, agreed. It looks super formal to me with its trim. Again, over differentiated, I would say.
Okay, we could certainly look at ways that we could simplify.
Okay. Okay. So we're good on the 33, less than 33%. And I appreciate you doing that math. And that helps us. Okay. Any other thoughts on that? And then finally, the windows. That's wonderful news that you've done that research, and we really appreciate the effort you're going to on that.
And honestly, I do want to thank John Tower. Obviously, we've worked very closely with him. We've met with him. We've had numerous conversations with him. So he's been a great support through this project.
Yeah, great.
Obviously, he's made recommendations, and we're obviously ready and willing to work with him. And obviously, Matt and Carrie are willing to do what you're recommending, and obviously, as John is guiding.
That's super. It's such an important aspect of preservation. The windows are the most important character. The roof and the windows that tend to be where we discuss things.
Certainly.
And
Tim,
John has pushed that into us.
I have a question on the window calculation.
Go ahead, Kevin.
What's labeled as the west side? There's a rather large window on the second level removed, and one window on the first level removed. Is that being removed regardless of the extension, or were those removed to get to the window percentage?
It was actually removed for egress purposes. There's existing. I mean, the entire top floor is finished space, but we have a bedroom in that one space where we need to meet the minimum code requirements for an egress.
Currently, it's maybe a 2x2 window or something like that.
Yeah, I see that one small, but each of the three levels has a window removed, right?
We have the second and top floor have windows removed or modified.
Yeah, because I'm on, page 26 of what was submitted.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and jump there.
So if you,
There we go.
Yeah.
So there's the 3-pane window on the second level, and the 1-pane window, the furthest to the rear on the first level, is removed as well on that drawing.
The upper left-hand side, on the left-hand lower elevation.
Right, there's that's the existing, right? With the,
correct.
There's whatever, however we count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 total windows, and then on the proposed there's 8 total windows, right? Is that, yeah, so there's,
yeah, you would be correct that those are based on the plan, interior plan modifications. And I think ultimately they're not necessarily perceived from either street or water view.
Again, that is not an
Understood.
reason
I understand.
I'm sorry to keep repeating it, but yeah, and thank you for drawing our attention to this, Kevin. We got a little distracted, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it removes
This
the
facade actually is completely changed.
And the third level windows are quite visible. I understand your egress concern, but it really changes the balance of the, like we're saying, it's a very simple structure, and that's what's about and fantastic about the structure. And we trying to minimize those changes.
And we discourage removal of existing windows, and you're going to need to repair brick here and insert new brick. So thank you for picking this up, Kevin. We had not noticed this as a possibly non-compliant area. The facade's changed completely.
Next question: if those windows, the first level and the second level, weren't changed, would that change your calculations again? And potentially make it exceed
It would, but I believe that we're focused on the water facing elevation for that percentage, and we just provided all. Of course, we'll update the percentages, but I mean, we were well under on all the other three, so I think we'd still be fine. But we'll update it as we.
Okay.
The numbers that are on there now reflect what's showing, but if we did add it back in, we'll obviously update that diagram.
I think the short answer is we did not remove windows to meet the calculations. I think we removed windows to meet the floor plan design. We are certainly willing to consider anything that we can keep or reuse as modification. Obviously, we still have to meet the IRC code compliance in terms of space.
Right.
So it's a balance, but we are willing to review that, and I thank you for the comments.
Yeah, my concern would be on the first floor, removing a window that has a rhythm on the existing facade of a pair, and
Really
changing on the second floor a completely different rhythm.
So and
it would be important, and determining the age of these specific windows, were these original to the structure or not, is going to be very important before we decide on whether it's compliant. But right now, this is a new issue.
Understood. We're willing to reevaluate and consider. Is there any consideration if windows that are removed, if they're reutilized or replaced elsewhere?
That's encouraged.
Yes.
That strengthens your case.
So if there's a window, for example, for the left-hand existing west elevation versus the proposed west elevation, there's obviously the double windows. If we were to remove the left-hand window and we were to say, hey, we can reutilize this elsewhere, that would possibly be supported?
Well, first we have to get to
No,
the removal.
that would be in conflict with the Secretary of the Interior standards number 3. It would create a false sense of history.
Well, okay, that was my question. Thank you, John.
Well, but we're using it elsewhere when we have had, for instance, you're removing on the south facade, you're removing windows in order to make the addition.
Certainly.
In other applications, reusing those windows in the addition has been supported.
Right.
We're not necessarily recommending that here. We're kind of off on a different topic.
Understood. Yeah.
Right now, we're seeing a new issue that you're effectively removing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of large windows, and then a small window. And the units are ganged on the second floor, 3 across there. That it's a very different facade than it used to be, and we just need to understand if that's necessary. The more of it you keep, the better.
Understood. We will review and reevaluate. Thank you.
And also, the repair of the brickwork is going to be very significant in the new, and obvious in I believe in the new the east elevation.
Yeah, and we've had several conversations with John, and I think we've agreed that John is also going to help guide us in terms of ensuring that we're not creating a false sense, but we are obviously respecting the existing structure.
Okay. New issue.
Did, okay, we hit all the comments.
Yeah, I think we did. Again,
Okay.
Kevin, good eye on that. All
Well,
right.
Looking at windows, the opposite side as well has quite a few windows removed, so it has the same
effect.
Yeah, so that's page. Well, it's labeled the east facade, but the same thing where there's multiple windows removed on this side.
There's a lot of movement of windows here.
Can we see the actual photographs of the side of the house, please?
We will, yep, they're here.
Yeah.
Changes quite a bit. These all look original.
Excuse me, John, what's the date of the house, the original construction?
I think I'm guessing here a bit, 1915.
1915?
The owner, maybe Matt and Carrie, do you know?
Sorry?
Yeah, that's what we were told when we purchased it, 1950.
Yeah.
1950 or 1915?
15.
15.
Right. 15.
And is the architect of the building of local or national or regional significance?
No.
So he's just a builder who put up a house in 1950.
It is a contributing structure, though.
It is a contributing structure. There's an unusually low level of ornamentation.
Yeah.
That's sort of where I'm going. It's not by a historically significant architect. It doesn't even seem to be, to my eye, easily classifiable in terms of the style. It's a rather workmanlike job. So
it's weird looking, it's odd, there's no balance, there's no symmetry.
Yes, that's exactly where I'm going. So how important is it in the end that we preserve every window where it currently is?
But is the floor plan itself what was relative to the location and the nature of these windows?
The existing for the new.
That would go back to my question, though, Leslie, the same thing. So this isn't representative of a historical style. It's not representative of an individual architect's taste. It's not the home of a historic figure. It's, we want to protect it, but in terms of, moving some windows or subtracting or adding a few windows, I remain to be persuaded that that's of high significance. Just one commissioner's opinion.
No, you're right. I would say you are arguing that a lenient standard should be applied as opposed to a strict, and I would be arguing that it would be a strict standard.
Well, that won't be the first or the last time.
Exactly. And removal of historic fabric is something that we talk about. The brickwork here and it is also not generally considered good for strict application. But I think I think we've raised the point to the applicant that there's a lot more movement of windows that we have discussed.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah. Less movement of windows would bring it closer to being feasible.
I would agree with that.
And Tim, I don't think we necessarily, we have not added any further, but obviously if it was not noticed or recognized or brought up in our previous pre-app, we recognize that. I think the one thing to consider, there is quite a bit of pointing up the brick or possible brick repair that is necessary due to structural concerns and or movement of the structure. So that is something we've obviously discussed with John.
Yeah.
And we know we are going to work with John in terms of how we proceed with that. And obviously you'll be involved in that process. John, correct me if I'm mistaken.
No, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And actually, to going back, I believe you're talking about parging this, or not parging, but using a whitewash finish in the end.
There would be a light line
Okay.
wash.
So that's how we would avoid some of the differences in the brickwork.
That would be correct, and that was our intent.
Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you, we can't rely on a whitewash finish to cover up, let's say,
Texture differences, yeah.
right,
The
right.
texture especially.
Right. We need to make the brick repairs as close as possible to the original.
There's a lot of brick repair. I think you'll read, I believe you will be able to read.
John, we're going to make you exhausted by the end of this project, because we're going to have you out there every week.
There will definitely be a palimpsest where these bricks were.
Yeah, yeah, there'll be a pattern.
And I think if there are any bricks that are removed that can be possibly reused, we're more than willing to try to do that. Obviously, we're not trying to give a false sense, but we're obviously trying to minimize or mitigate any concerns of alterations.
I think for the dozens of masons that I know, only 2 will even attempt to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not a mason.
Rare.
I will take for it.
Another mitigation of this issue is actually when you're taking out a window to preserve the frame in brickwork. I mean, I'm not recommending that, but that's an example of how you preserve the history of the building. I can't imagine how you would do that with the windows that you want to do, but I think we've raised the point that fewer movement of windows would be is important to getting this to a feasible design, a feasible approval.
Understood. We will reevaluate our windows as well.
Yeah.
E10.
Now that you've decided, of course, that you're going to repair them, that will become more significant.
Certainly.
Yeah. Okay. If there's no other discussion, I'll go ahead and summarize. Regarding the pre-application for 9 Southgate Avenue, the applicant and architect have addressed prior comments regarding compliance with Guideline D9 and D11 having to do with subordination. I'm sorry. Regarding D9 and D11, there's no change to any of the dormer structure, so that has been addressed. The commissioners discussed the overall scale of the addition and had differing opinions on whether it appears subordinate to the original house. The massing was discussed and differing opinions occurred there, and also the detail to possibly to be simplified to make the addition not appear more decorative or more formal and therefore subordinate to the original structure, which is quite simple in style. Regarding the roof deck in Guideline B9, the commissioners discussed the concept that concealing the identity of the roof deck possibly it brings it into compliance of not appearing against the silhouette of the building and not having an adverse impact on the neighboring structures. There was a difference of opinion on that, and the applicant and architect will consider removing some of the features, including the railing, that make it look more like a deck. And that had to do with also Guideline A3, having to do with the views from the water appearing to be a roof deck. The applicant did a complete calculation in terms of glass percentages on each facade in regard to Guideline D19, and it's clear that the proposed design is less than 33%, but a new discussion ensued regarding the movement of existing windows, and the applicant is encouraged to move fewer windows and destroy less historic fabric and require more modern repair of existing brickwork. again, there are differences of opinion as to how strict review there is on this relatively simple building, and look forward to less change, but not completely closed to any no change. I'll word that better when. And finally, the applicant has very gladly and happily decided to restore the windows instead of replace them, which is very important. So a survey is not going to be required if you're basically restoring. Reuse of existing windows in the final design is encouraged as well. I feel like I missed something. Did I miss anything, commissioners? Okay. Well, I hope we gave you enough. Did we give you enough to further your project?
You gave us a lot of great feedback. So I honestly want to say I thank you to everybody, especially for your time this evening. And we look forward to our next application or pre-application.
All right. Thank you for participating. And again, thank you to
Matt and Carrie. Do you have anything in addition you would like to add?
No, just thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you to the McLaughlins for understanding how important it is to join us in our community. And we certainly agree with everything you're saying and why people buy in the historic district.
Great.
It's unique. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda, I'll be brief. Administrative business. Hopefully everyone had an opportunity to review the 2021 annual report. We submitted it already. John submitted it already per our requirements, and it's always impressive the volume that you see in that report when it's boiled down to a table. And also the same thing about the administrative approvals. Look at the volume of work that is actually accomplished by John's office. It's truly amazing. So shout out to John and his group on that. Oh, you know what? I knew there was something I forgot. On the pre-app, we didn't talk about the landscape plan, which was submitted this time. So John, could you communicate that to them? I don't want to have a discussion now.
No, I'll communicate with them in the AM, and there's different lot coverage issues. And
I think I would draw attention to it. Would appear in the front yard. There were 2 parking places in the front yard.
I didn't see that.
It looked to me like there was a paving with a landscape feature that looked like 2 parking places, a paved area that looked just, if you could we're going to need to talk about that. It could possibly be in the final application if they don't want to do another pre-app, but I would have a conversation there. I knew there was something.
I thought you were going to mention massing.
No, never.
Right.
I can be guaranteed to forget something. Okay, so we have those 2 items. 2 other brief items. We still are under a comment period for furniture guidelines for outdoor dining, and that will close on Thursday of this week. We have not received any further comments. I received your comments in our last review. I will update them Friday. My takeaways from that was I should actually provide not fewer options, but don't worry so much about many examples. Just guide them towards just making fewer choices. I took that away from last time.
Tim, my concern was not so much the number of options of things that are permissible. Don't give them any examples of what's not.
That's
where I was going.
I take that. Okay, great. That's fine. I agree with that. It'd be very easy to just point that's not compliant because of X, Y, and Z. You don't. Okay, got it. So if we have an administrative meeting in in February, we should have those in our hands, and they are in effect per the way we are promulgating our rules and regulations now under the new guidelines. So John is enabled to work on these. We are required to prepare a report to City Council on our process and our recommendation. Then they may or may not discuss it. It'll be on their agenda for 2 meetings, and then it is basically, I'm not sure the word would be ratified, but it is in effect right now. So it is enforceable right now. And we got the Office of Law to agree that before I started this process. The final thing was at our last meeting, we talked, Kevin and I think Bobby both had attended some courses and thought the content was great. And also we discussed the idea of more outreach to the community, to specific groups of people, builders who are doing work on historic buildings, and also realtors. And that came up in our discussion yesterday with Historic Annapolis, with Robert and Karen. And we offered, and they offered, to jointly do something during the month of May, which is Preservation Month, and do some kind of program that we would advertise, probably on a Saturday, a workshop to talk about building trades and construction techniques, and also possibly at the same time work with realtors on aspects of explaining to prospective buyers what they can expect, and how, just education. So if anyone is interested in participating, or I'm looking for a volunteer to participate. Bobby, okay, I see a hand, good. To help with Karen, we'll be working with Karen. She's going to reach out to Preservation Maryland, and possibly National Park Service has a technical trade work center of excellence in Frederick. We've had successful window workshops in the past too. That could be a part of this. So Bobby, if I can talk about that, and anybody else who we a few years ago did a Realtor Education, we can pull that content out also.
Yeah.
So
I don't think with the realtors we need to get into too much specifics, but if we can give them a broad base of information and basically tell them where the resources are,
yeah,
I think that'll be really helpful for them.
Tell you the truth, Jonathan, alerting to the fact that in their contracts that they have people signed, there's a requirement to notify the buyer that they are in a historic district, which has additional regulations. That's a state law.
Yeah. But maybe an explanation of what that actually means.
That's right.
When I remember the last time I bought a house, it was a stack of papers this thick. I think all I did was sign for an hour. I don't think I read half of it, or not even a tenth of it at the time. So.
Yeah. You just want to buy the house.
Yep.
Okay. Any other business?
Well, just I'm meeting with the Market Space restaurants tomorrow, so I expect some final comments. Just right at the last minute.
Of course.
Are you also meeting with the Parklet team?
Yes, but that is a group of people within government, so they tend not to focus on fixtures and furnishings as much as trying to figure out how to balance administration directives and business interests with preserving the integrity of our city. And how do we keep parking, when a garage is being built, etc. Plenty of things to think about.
Garage demolition is still slated for March, as I understand it, but they are facing technical, nothing to do with, I think there's financial aspects, there's some feasibility. That's my understanding. That's secondhand. I don't have any knowledge that you wouldn't be able to read or hear from other people, but it's delayed because of the contracts themselves. Okay,
Move adjournment?
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Good
Thanks,
meeting.
everybody. And we
Thank
may
you
see you in
all.
2 weeks. We may not.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right.